Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Leigh McSwan, a certified holistic nutritionist. Today's video is a little potentially controversial. A couple people have asked me over the years, knowing that I started out as a nutritionist who was plant-based slash vegetarian slash vegan. I actually raised my first son as a vegetarian baby and somewhat lived a vegan lifestyle at the time. So I just wanted to share my story, and that's the extent of this. I'm not going to be getting into the pros and cons of either side of this lifestyle or diet choice. This is simply me explaining how I fell into the diet that I now currently follow and my experience living a vegan lifestyle. So just as a heads up, if anyone is going to leave a nasty comment, I am simply just going to be deleting, blocking. You'll be vanished from the comment section and no one will see your message anyways. This video is more or less meant for people who are struggling and not sure what diet is or isn't working with them. I'm just hoping to shed some light and maybe have that light bulb moment go off for you. I just want to preface this video by saying that I understand why this is such a heated topic, and I understand the compassion and the empathy that goes behind a vegan trying to portray their side of the story and portray the lifestyle as being the best for them, because I was that person. So I have a lot of respect and I have a lot of compassion, and this video is just meant to be made with love and respect, and I don't want anyone feeling in any way offended. So I hope that that's exactly how this comes across. So before we get started, make sure that you are subscribed before you leave. Here we go. So I grew up as a regular kind of meat eating person, and then as I went off to nutrition school, I kind of dabbled in plant-based living. I stopped eating red meat, and then I stopped eating chicken and poultry, and I was only eating fish for a very short period of time. And then I just dove headfirst off into vegan land, and I basically stopped eating all meat, cheese, dairy, any animal product or byproduct. And I would say that in some regards it was influenced by the school. A lot of the teachers were plant-based themselves. A lot of my peers also ate plant-based. Not all of them, of course, but it definitely seemed to be kind of like an underlying message that health equals vegan. So I thought, you know what, I was in my very early 20s. I kind of experimented, and that's when my health started to decline for the worst. And I went into the vegan lifestyle because I was so I had so much compassion for animals. I grew up riding horses. We've had dogs and cats my entire life. So my mindset was, if we have pets that we don't eat, why would we go and eat other animals? I was also being educated that animal-based proteins and animal-based fats were not necessary for survival, and that you could counter argue, yes, a person can live without them, but as you will see from my story, I wasn't living optimally. I basically decided that I wanted to do the vegan way because that's what felt, that's what resonated with me the most, was the ethical issue. I also had environmental concerns as well too, which I now understand to be something completely different, and I just realized how misinformed I was at the time. But anyways, let me just share with you some of the things that I started to experience in about my 1 to 2 years of living a vegan plant-based diet. The first thing was that I gained weight, which is not a terrible thing. I mean, there's other factors that go into it as well too. Of course, I was a student, there were stresses, and I had just graduated university as well too. So I was working my butt off to pay off a $10,000 student loan. And so weight was definitely something that played a factor, but I don't think it was something that I really cared about. Like, I've never really cared about numbers. But some of the things that were the absolute worst for me, aside from the weight gain, I was constantly bloated because I was eating so much rice, so many different varieties of beans. I was eating a lot of soy, I was eating tofu. I was your typical cookie cutter vegan who went into it with the mindset that anything that was made with animal products could be made with soy and beans, and texturized vegetable proteins and all that scary stuff that isn't even food in my opinion. I did that initially. I eventually stopped doing that as I learned more about soy and the ill effects of the overconsumption of processed vegan burgers and vegan dogs and tofurkey and all this garbage that they make. But anyways, I digress. So I noticed that my digestion was absolutely terrible for the first time since high school. My pant size had gone up, and I think it was more or less, I literally couldn't button the top of my jeans because I was chronically bloated. I would wake up, I would be bloated. I would drink a sip of water, I was bloated. I had absolutely horrific periods to the point that I would pass out from feeling feverish. Like I would have these dizzy spells, and I would get a rush of heat, and then I would be freezing cold, and this would last almost an entire day. I was put on medication for endometriosis. I did not have endometriosis, but the pain was so excruciatingly bad that I needed some kind of relief. So that was horrible. The other thing that was a really big noticeable difference for me when I was eating a vegan diet was the fact that my skin was horrific. It was very patchy with acne. I would get bad breakouts around my period. I'm not saying my skin is perfect now. It's absolutely not. I still get pimples every once in a while, but what a difference it was when I was eating a ton of grains and alternative meat products and beans and lentils. Oh my God, I used to eat so many lentils. I'm just remembering how many things I used to make with lentils. I would make lentil stew, shepherd's pie made with lentils, like lentil burgers, lentil sausages, like you named it. I was in deep, you guys. I was in the vegan lifestyle, real deep. Lentils all day, every day. I basically overall felt like crap, and I kept ignoring it because I was so caught up in living a cruelty-free life. Couldn't deny the fact that my body was craving meat so bad. Like it was just absolutely undeniable that that's exactly what I needed. So I slowly started adding in meat again. And I know a lot of people say that once they've been vegan, they start eating meat again and they don't digest it well, or they feel really sick or nauseous or something like that. That wasn't the case for me. My body was like, hallelujah. It felt so much better for me. That day of eating chicken, my digestion was noticeably different. And it's because I had eaten chicken instead of my usual beans and lentils and frankenfood of burger alternatives. So I slowly started doing that again, and I slowly started adding meat back in, but I also still kind of felt a lot of guilt about it. My first son, that I decided this is not how I should be raising him. I noticed that he had a lot of digestive issues. So I went and talked to a naturopath. I was seeing one previously who was really supportive of what I wanted, and I think that's initially what a naturopath should do, is they should support you in some way to what you're doing. But there was no advice given that you probably shouldn't do this, this probably isn't working for you, it's probably not working for your son. So I went and had a conversation with my naturopath, who's still our family's naturopath, and I basically told him, like, I struggled with the fact that I had a hard time being okay with meat being on my plate. Like, I would look at it and it would make me want to gag, just knowing that it was at one point an animal, and that animal was alive and it is now dead because I wanted to eat it. He was the first person that introduced me to pasture-raised animals. And I know that sounds crazy, but in nutrition school, I don't remember any of those conversations about pasture-raised animals. It felt like it was more a vegan message. I'm not sure if that's just me tuning out, not wanting to eat meat at the time, or if they were having those conversations. I wasn't ready to hear it, and I didn't want to hear it. So I'm not sure. I'm not trying to blame my school in any way. I actually love my school, and I think that the institution is amazing. So my naturopath was the first person that said to me, you need to go to a farm and meet your meat and make peace with the fact that you're not eating a factory farmed animal who's never been outside and isn't grain fed and corn fed. And is living its best life before it's brought to slaughter. And I know that that's gonna sound really hard for some people to understand and to hear, and I get it and I empathize, and I was there, so I completely understand. But for me, that was reassuring, that the fact that my food wasn't in any way living this terrible factory farm confined life, that they actually lived a normal, healthy, happy life, like a happy cow, in pasture, in grass, where it's meant to be. And then yes, unfortunately, the end result is of course slaughter. There's no way around that. If you're going to be a meat eater, your animal does die for you. But having that connection with the farmer, having that connection with the farm and with the animals really put that missing piece of the puzzle in place for me. That was when I learned more about like eating a quote unquote paleo diet. So when I stopped eating so many carbohydrates and so many beans and lentils and so much rice, I was a brown rice junkie. You guys probably know that I only eat white rice now. My health improved a lot, and that's when I saw changes in my child, and that's when I saw noticeable changes in my mood, in my digestion, in my acne, in my hormones. I can't imagine having kept going with that because I was being so stubborn. I love that I care so much about animals, but now it's just transitioned into a different way of thinking about my meat and the food that's on our family's plates and table at dinner time. It's just made a world of difference for me. I see differences in my kids' behavior, and everything has just been better since I lowered the amount of grain-based carbohydrates in my diet. We would say that we consider ourselves kind of eating in the way of following a paleo framework. We tend not to have too much of a focus on grain-based carbohydrates when we have our meals. We will do rice every once in a while. We'll do a little bit of gluten-free bread here and there. We will do some gluten-free pizza every once in a while. Way less grain-based carbohydrates, and I'm the only one that eats dairy in the entire house. So that's pretty much the best way to describe my diet, if you will, is a paleo framework, an off-the-cuff version of paleo. And that's just what works for me. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I know the best diet for every single person. I absolutely don't. I have met vegans who are thriving, and I'm like, good for you. That's great that you found what works for you. I 100% support that. I have met people that do ketogenic diets, and that works great for them. I have met people like me who do a little bit of everything and kind of find this like flexibility kind of framework that works really well for them, and that's great. Every single person is going to eat differently than you. Every single person is going to have their sweet spot. It's not up to us to decide what is right or what is wrong for somebody else. It's just doing what's best for your body and being in tune with it and listening and having an open and honest conversation with yourself when something isn't working. And I think as long as you're willing to have these conversations with yourself and try things, that's the biggest thing. I think we all need to experiment with our bodies and our diets and what works and what doesn't, and come back and reevaluate things and make changes as needed. That's the best way to live a holistic lifestyle and to feel your absolute best. I found something that worked for me. I still have to monitor the amount of sugars that I eat. Otherwise, I do run into problems. I think it's really important that we have these conversations with ourselves so that we're constantly working to improve our health and improve how good we feel, and not worry about what other people are doing diet-wise, and not be so influenced by what we see online and all these crazy claims that veganism cured this or paleo cured that. That might be true for that person, and good if it is. It may not work for you, but that's when the experimentation is a really big factor. So hopefully you listen to your body and make the adjustments accordingly. All right, guys, that is everything that I've got for you today. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I hope everyone will be really sweet and kind and not jerky and trolly in the comments, because you will be deleted and you've been warned. So that's everything I've got for you guys today, and I will catch you next week in another video. Make sure you subscribe before you leave. Take care, guys. Ciao.